Story 1. I've been deaf since I was 3 years old. A bad case of meningitis took my hearing, but I was lucky enough to have parents who pushed me to adapt rather than letting me fall behind. I learned to read lips pretty well, developed decent speech skills, though I know my voice probably sounds different, and even went to a mainstream high school instead of a deaf school. Life isn't always easy being deaf, but I've managed to build a good one. I'm studying graphic design at the local community college, and to pay for it, I work part-time at Beans and Dreams, this cute little cafe downtown. The owners are great. They're a married couple who learned some basic sign language when they hired me and made accommodations like installing a screen on my register that shows customer orders as they're entered. My coworkers are cool too. They face me directly when speaking and have learned to tap my shoulder gently before talking if I'm not looking. We've worked out systems for everything: flashing lights when the phone rings, written notes for complex instructions, and text messages for quick communication. Most customers are understanding once they realize I'm deaf. I wear a small badge that says, "I'm deaf, but I read lips. Please face me when speaking." Usually, people just nod and make sure I can see their mouths when they order. Some people struggle a bit, but we figure it out. Then there was last Tuesday, the day I met her. It was the morning rush, and I was handling the register while my coworker was making drinks. The line was moving steadily, and everything was going fine until she stepped up to the counter. She was middle-aged with an expensive-looking haircut and designer sunglasses perched on her head. She was staring down at her phone, tapping away with manicured nails as she approached the counter. I smiled and waited for her to look up, and waited, and waited. When she finally glanced up, she barely made eye contact before looking back down at her phone and mumbling something. I couldn't see her lips, so I had no idea what she'd said. I tapped the counter gently to get her attention. When she looked up, annoyed, I pointed to my badge. What? I pointed to my badge again and spoke clearly. "I'm deaf. Can you please look at me when you order so I can read your lips?" She rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically. I said I want a large skinny vanilla latte with extra foam and an extra shot." She immediately looked back down at her phone. I entered the order and showed her the screen to confirm. She nodded without really looking. "That'll be $5.75. She handed me her credit card, and I processed the payment. I gave her the receipt and motioned that she could move to the pickup area. That should have been the end of our interaction. But a few minutes later, I felt someone aggressively tapping my shoulder. I turned around to find her glaring at me, her drink in hand. This isn't what I ordered." I could see she was angry, but I needed her to calm down so I could understand her. I pointed to my badge again and made a slow-down gesture with my hands. "I don't care if you're deaf. You got my order wrong. I wanted almond milk, not regular milk." I grabbed a notepad we keep under the counter for situations like this. I wrote, "I'm sorry for the confusion. You didn't specify almond milk in your order. I'd be happy to remake it for you." She snatched the notepad from me, read it, and threw it back on the counter. "This is ridiculous. I clearly said almond milk. You're just pretending not to hear me. I want to speak to your manager right now." My coworker noticed the commotion and came over. She tried to explain the situation. Coworker: "Ma'am, he's actually deaf. He reads lips, but you need to look at him when you speak. He didn't know you wanted almond milk because you were looking at your phone when ordering." That's absurd. How can a deaf person work in customer service? This is unacceptable. He's clearly faking it to avoid doing his job properly. My coworker and I exchanged glances. Was this woman for real? Coworker: "I assure you he's not faking being deaf. Now, I'd be happy to remake your drink with almond milk." No, I want him fired immediately. This is discrimination against paying customers. At this point, other customers in line were watching the scene unfold. Some looked uncomfortable, others annoyed at the delay. My coworker tried one more time to defuse the situation. Coworker: "Ma'am, please lower your voice. We'll remake your drink for free, but you need to calm down. She? Don't tell me to calm down. I know my rights. I'm calling the police. Both my coworker and I stared in disbelief as she pulled out her phone and actually dialed 911. I couldn't hear what she was saying, of course, but her face was getting redder by the second. The cafe owners came out from the back office, alerted by another employee about the disturbance. "Owner, what's going on here?" Before my coworker could explain, the woman launched into what appeared to be an angry tirade, pointing at me repeatedly. I could only catch snippets as she was speaking too quickly and erratically for me to read her lips properly. The owners looked at me sympathetically. The female owner came to stand beside me and put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Female owner: "Ma'am, I'm one of the owners. There's no need to involve the police in this matter. We can resolve this simply by remaking your drink." The woman shook her head vehemently and kept pointing at me, obviously insisting on whatever she had told the police. About 15 minutes later, 2 police officers walked into the cafe. By this time, the woman had been moved to a table away from the counter so other customers could be served, though she kept shooting daggers at me with her eyes. The officers first spoke with her, then with the owners and my coworker. Finally, one of them approached me. He made sure to face me directly. "Officer, hello. I understand there was a misunderstanding about an order." I nodded and grabbed my notepad. I wrote down my side of the story, explaining that I'm deaf, that I read lips, and that the customer had been looking down at her phone when ordering, making it impossible for me to know she wanted almond milk. The officer read my note and nodded understandingly. He wrote back, "Thank you for explaining. You've done nothing wrong." Then he went back to speak with the woman. I couldn't see what was being said, but her face grew increasingly red, and she was gesturing wildly. At one point, she stood up and pointed at me again, clearly yelling. The officers remained calm. One of them said something that made her even angrier. She grabbed her purse and slammed it on the table. Then, to my astonishment, the officers each took one of her arms and began escorting her toward the exit. She was resisting, looking back at me with pure hatred. Just before they reached the door, my female boss approached them and said something to the woman, making a clear, "Don't come back" gesture with her hand. The woman was practically dragged out of the cafe, still struggling against the officers. When they were gone, everyone in the cafe seemed to exhale collectively. Several customers came up to the counter to express their support, some writing notes for me, others signing basic phrases like "thank you" and "you're awesome," even if they weren't fluent in sign language. The gesture was touching. My boss hugged me and asked if I was okay. I nodded, still a bit shaken, but relieved the situation was over. Later, my coworker showed me her phone. The woman had apparently gone on social media to complain about her horrible treatment at our cafe, claiming discrimination against normal hearing people and saying the police had been called on her unfairly. But it backfired spectacularly. People who had been at the cafe commented with what really happened. Others pointed out how ridiculous her claim of discrimination against hearing people was. Some shared their own positive experiences with me as their barista. The post went viral locally, with hundreds of people defending me and criticizing her entitled behavior. By the next day, she had deleted the post entirely, but screenshots were already circulating. The cafe received an outpouring of support. For the next week, we had more customers than usual, many specifically requesting that I take their orders. Some even learned basic signs like "thank you" and "please" to use when ordering. My boss has implemented a new policy requiring customers to put away their phones when ordering, not just for my benefit, but to make all interactions more respectful and efficient. As for the woman, we never saw her again. But about a month later, my coworker showed me another social media post where someone had recognized her causing a similar scene at a restaurant across town. The commenter had linked to the screenshots from our incident, warning others about her behavior. I've been dealing with communication barriers my whole life, but nothing prepared me for someone so determined to be difficult. In the end, though, it brought our cafe community closer together, and showed me how many people are willing to stand up against entitlement and ignorance. I still don't know what she told the police to try to get me arrested. My coworker said she claimed I was refusing service to hearing people and creating a hostile environment through selective communication. Whatever that means. All I know is that I'm grateful for allies who understand that accommodation goes both ways. Yes, the world needs to accommodate disabilities, but everyone needs to accommodate basic human decency too. Story 2. I never thought I'd end up in court over something that happened at a grocery store. But life has a way of throwing curveballs at you. First, let me tell you a bit about myself and how I got to that point. 3 years ago, I was honorably discharged from the military after serving 2 tours overseas. The transition back to civilian life wasn't easy. The loud noises, crowded spaces, and unpredictable environments would trigger severe anxiety attacks. My doctor diagnosed me with PTSD and suggested I look into getting a service dog to help manage my symptoms. That's how Max came into my life. He's a beautiful German Shepherd with the most soulful brown eyes you've ever seen. We went through 6 months of intensive training together. Max learned to recognize the signs of my anxiety and provide deep pressure therapy by leaning against me or placing his head on my lap. He also creates space between me and others in crowded areas and guides me to exits when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Max has been a lifesaver, literally. With him by my side, I've been able to regain my independence. I can go grocery shopping, attend concerts, and even ride public transportation without spiraling into panic attacks. He's always alert, always professional, and always by my side. Which brings me to that fateful day at the grocery store. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I needed to pick up some essentials. Max was wearing his service vest, which clearly says, "Service Dog Do Not Pet," in bright red letters. We were in the produce section, and I was selecting some apples when I felt Max tense up beside me. That's usually his way of alerting me that someone is approaching. I turned around to see a woman in her 40s with an expensive haircut and designer sunglasses perched on top of her head. She had a boy of about 8 or 9 with her who was pointing at Max and jumping up and down. "Woman, what a beautiful dog. My son wants to pet him." Me? "I'm sorry, but he's a service dog and he's working right now. He can't be distracted while he's on duty." The woman's face immediately soured, like I just told her the store was out of her favorite wine. Woman: "Oh, come on. It's just a quick pet. Don't be so selfish." Me: "Ma'am, I'm not being selfish. He's medically necessary equipment for me. Would you ask someone to let your child play with their wheelchair or oxygen tank?" Her son started whining louder, stomping his feet on the ground. Boy: "But Mom, you said I could have a dog. I want this dog. He's so cool." I felt my anxiety start to creep up, and Max sensed it too. He pressed his body against my leg, providing that comforting pressure that helps ground me. Woman: "See how calm he is? He's perfectly fine to play with my son. You're just being difficult." Me: "No, he's actually working right now. He's helping me with my disability. Please respect that and give us space." I turned away, hoping that would be the end of it. I focused on my breathing techniques and continued shopping. Max stayed vigilant by my side as we moved to the canned goods aisle. I was reaching for some soup when I heard rapid footsteps behind me. Before I could react, I felt Max's leash go slack. I spun around to see the woman unclipping Max's leash from his service vest. Me: "What are you doing? Stop that immediately." Woman: "My son deserves a nice dog like this. You're obviously just using him to get attention. A real disabled person would be in a wheelchair." She grabbed Max's collar and started pulling him toward her son. Max looked back at me, confused and uncertain. He's trained not to leave my side, but he's also trained to be non-aggressive and calm. Me: "Let go of my dog right now. You're interfering with a service animal, which is illegal." People were starting to stare. I could feel the panic rising in my chest. my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Without Max by my side, I was starting to spiral. "Woman, come here, doggy. You're going to come home with us and have a real family that appreciates you." She yanked hard on Max's collar, pulling him away from me. That's when it happened. Max, feeling threatened and being forcibly removed from his handler, did something I'd never seen him do before. He growled and then nipped at her hand, not a full bite, just enough to make her let go. The woman screamed like she'd been shot. "Woman, he bit me. This vicious dog attacked me. Someone call the police." Her son started crying, more from the shock of his mother's screaming than anything else. I rushed forward and reattached Max's leash, my hands shaking so badly I could barely manage the clip. A store manager came running over, followed by a security guard. "Store manager, what's going on here?" "Woman, that dangerous dog attacked me unprovoked. I want it put down and I'm going to sue the owner for everything he's got." "Me. That's not what happened." This woman unclipped my service dog's leash and tried to take him away from me. He nipped at her when she yanked on his collar. The security guard looked skeptical. "Security guard, do you have any proof of this?" Before I could answer, an elderly man stepped forward. He had been shopping nearby and had witnessed the whole thing. "Elderly man, I saw everything. This young man is telling the truth. That woman unclipped the dog's leash and was trying to drag it away. The dog only reacted when she pulled roughly on its collar." Several other shoppers nodded in agreement. The store manager looked at the ceiling. "Store manager, we have security cameras in this aisle. We can review the footage if necessary." The woman's face went pale. She probably realized she wasn't going to get away with her made-up story. "Woman, well, the dog shouldn't be in a grocery store anyway. It's unsanitary." Store manager, service animals are legally permitted in our store, ma'am. The police were called, and we all had to wait. My anxiety was through the roof, but having Max back by my side helped. He kept pressing against my leg, reminding me he was there. The woman kept a distance, holding a handkerchief to her hand, even though there wasn't any blood. When the police arrived, they took statements from everyone involved, including the witnesses. The security footage clearly showed the woman unclipping Max's leash and attempting to take him away. One of the officers pulled me aside. "Police officer, sir, do you want to press charges?" "Me? For what?" "Police officer, she attempted to steal your service dog, which is theft. She also interfered with a service animal, which is a separate offense in our state. And based on how roughly she was handling the dog in the video, we could add animal cruelty charges." I was stunned. I hadn't expected this outcome. "Police officer, service dog theft is taken very seriously. These animals are essential medical equipment and are specially trained at great expense." The woman was now sitting on a bench, her son next to her looking bored rather than upset. She overheard our conversation and stormed over. "Woman, I'm the victim here. That dog attacked me. I'm suing for damages and emotional distress." "Police officer, ma'am, please step back. Based on the video evidence and witness statements, you're the one facing potential charges here." "Woman, do you know who my husband is? He's a lawyer, and he'll have your badge." "Police officer, your husband is welcome to represent you in court, ma'am." The woman was issued citations for attempt to steal a service animal and animal cruelty. She was told to appear in court the following month. She stormed out of the store, dragging her son behind her and threatening lawsuits against everyone, me, the store, the police, even poor Max. I thought that would be the end of it, but a week later, I was served with papers. She was indeed suing me for medical expenses, emotional distress, and pain and suffering. Her lawsuit claimed Max was an aggressive dog that attacked her without provocation while her innocent son was merely trying to pet him. I was devastated. I couldn't afford a lengthy legal battle. Max was my lifeline, and the thought of losing him over this ridiculous situation was unbearable. But then something amazing happened. The story had been captured on the store's security cameras, and someone who worked there leaked a short clip to social media. It went viral overnight. Entitled "Mom Tries to Steal Service Dog, Gets Bitten," Sue's owner was trending. A local attorney who specializes in disability rights cases contacted me and offered to represent me pro bono. He filed a countersuit for attempted theft of a service animal, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. When we got to court, the woman showed up with a small bandage on her hand, looking like she expected to walk away with a big settlement. Her face dropped when she saw my attorney and a stack of evidence he carried, including the security footage, witness statements, and medical documentation about my PTSD and Max's role as my service animal. The judge reviewed everything and didn't even let the case proceed to trial. He dismissed her lawsuit entirely and allowed our countersuit to move forward. In the end, she was found liable for attempting to steal my service dog, interfering with a service animal, and causing emotional distress to a person with a disability. She was ordered to pay a fine, complete community service hours at an animal shelter, and take an educational course about service animals and disability rights. The judge also issued a restraining order preventing her from coming near me or Max again. As we left the courthouse, my attorney patted me on the shoulder. "Attorney, justice was served today, and hopefully, she learned a valuable lesson about respecting service animals and the people who need them." Max pressed against my leg, his warm presence a reminder that no matter what challenges we face them together. I reached down to scratch behind his ears, his favorite spot, and whispered a thank you to my loyal companion who had stood by me through it all. Story 3. I'm a family medicine physician with my own small practice in a suburban medical plaza. I've been running this clinic for about 8 years now, and while I've dealt with difficult patients before, nothing prepared me for what happened last Tuesday. Some background: I worked for a large hospital group for nearly a decade before opening my own practice. The corporate environment was suffocating: endless paperwork, rushed appointments, and constantly being told to see more patients in less time. I took out a substantial loan to start my own place, determined to practice medicine my way. It hasn't been easy, but I've built a loyal patient base who appreciate that I take time with each person and run on schedule as much as humanly possible. Our clinic has a simple system: appointments get priority, but we accept walk-ins who understand they'll need to wait until we can fit them in. My receptionist, my nurse, and I work together like a well-oiled machine. My receptionist has been with me since day one and handles the front desk with impressive efficiency. My nurse started 2 years ago and quickly became indispensable. We're a small team, but we make it work. Tuesday started like any other day. I arrived at 7:30 a.m., reviewed charts, and started seeing patients at 8 o'clock. By noon, we were running right on schedule, a minor miracle in healthcare. My 12:15 appointment had just gone back with my nurse when the front door slammed open so hard I heard it from my office. The commotion that followed was impossible to ignore. A woman's voice, pitched somewhere between a yell and a shriek, echoed down the hallway. "Woman, I need to see the doctor right now." I could hear my receptionist's calm, professional response. Receptionist: "Good afternoon, ma'am. Do you have an appointment with us today?" Woman: "No, but this is an emergency. I've been having these headaches for 3 days." Receptionist: "I understand that's concerning. We do accept walk-ins, but there are 2 people ahead of you who are also waiting without appointments. The doctor is currently with a scheduled patient, so the estimated wait time would be about an hour." Woman: "An hour? Do you know who I am? I don't wait. I have an important meeting in 45 minutes. I was finishing notes on my previous patient, but I could hear this conversation clearly. My receptionist has been through similar scenarios and always handles them professionally. Receptionist: "I apologize, but we see patients in order of their appointment times, with walk-ins fit in between as possible. If this is a medical emergency requiring immediate attention, I'd be happy to direct you to the urgent care center 2 buildings down or call an ambulance if needed. Woman: This is an emergency. My head is killing me, and I have a meeting to get to. I'm not going anywhere else. Get the doctor out here now. At this point, I decided to step in before things escalated further. I finished my notes, stepped out of my office, and walked to the front desk. The woman standing there was probably in her mid-40s, dressed in an expensive-looking suit, with designer sunglasses pushed up on her head. Her face was flushed with anger as she leaned over the reception desk, pointing her finger at my receptionist. Me: Hello, I'm the doctor. Is there something I can help with? She whipped around to face me, momentarily startled by my appearance. I'm not what people typically expect. I'm younger than many of my patients assume a doctor should be, and I don't wear a white coat in the office. Woman: Finally, someone who can actually help. I need to be seen right now for these terrible headaches I've been having. Me: I understand headaches can be very distressing. As my receptionist mentioned, we have a few patients ahead of you, but we'll do our best to. She cut me off mid-sentence. Woman: No, you don't understand. I don't wait. I'm a very important person, and I have a meeting at 1 o'clock. Me: I apologize, but I'm currently seeing patients who made appointments weeks ago. I can't just... Woman: Do you know who I am? This is always an interesting question because the answer is invariably no. I've found it's best to be direct in these situations. Me: I'm afraid I don't. Are you a patient of ours? Woman: I'm your boss. This caught me completely off guard. I own my practice. I don't have a boss. Me: I'm sorry, there must be some confusion. I own this practice. Woman: No, you don't understand. I'm the regional director for Medical Associates Group. Now things started to make sense. Medical Associates Group is a large healthcare corporation that owns several practices in our area, but they have nothing to do with my clinic. Their main office is actually in the same medical plaza as us, but in a different building. Me: Ma'am, we're not affiliated with Medical Associates Group. This is a private practice called Family First Medical. Medical Associates is in Building C of this plaza. Her expression didn't change. If anything, she looked more confident. Woman: Don't lie to me. I know exactly where I am, and as your superior, I'm ordering you to see me right now. By this point, my scheduled 12:30 appointment had arrived, and was watching this scene unfold with undisguised interest. My nurse had also come to the front desk, having settled my 12:15 patient in an exam room. Me: Again, there seems to be a misunderstanding. I don't work for Medical Associates Group. This is my private practice. If you'd like to be seen here, you're welcome to wait until we can fit you in, which would be approximately an hour from now. Alternatively, the urgent care center nearby could likely see you more quickly. Woman: Stop playing games. I sign your paychecks, and I can fire you just as easily. The situation was getting ridiculous. My receptionist slid a business card across the counter. Receptionist: Ma'am, here's our card. As you can see, we're Family First Medical, not Medical Associates Group. The woman didn't even glance at the card. Woman: I don't need to see that. I know exactly where I am. Now, are you going to see me, or do I need to fire you on the spot? Me: Neither option is applicable since you don't work here and have no authority over anyone in this office. Now, I need to get back to my scheduled patients. You're welcome to wait or try the urgent care center. I turned to walk back to the exam rooms when she completely lost it. Woman: You're fired. Do you hear me? Fired. I'll have your license for this. I'll call the medical board right now. She was screaming so loudly that my patient in exam room 1 opened the door to see what was happening. My receptionist immediately pressed the security button we had installed after an unrelated incident last year. Woman: Everyone listen up. This doctor is fired. He is no longer authorized to practice medicine here. All patients need to leave immediately. She turned to the waiting patients, who stared at her in bewilderment. Woman, the clinic is closed. This man is not a doctor anymore. I just fired him. My 12:30 appointment, an elderly gentleman I've been treating for years, actually laughed. Patient, lady, he owns this place. He's been my doctor for 6 years. Who are you? Woman, I'm the regional director of this medical facility, and I've just terminated this so-called doctor's employment. The building security guard arrived remarkably quickly. He's a retired police officer who knows me well. Security, what seems to be the problem here, Doc? Before I could answer, the woman turned her rage on him. Woman, escort this former employee from the premises immediately. He's been terminated and is trespassing. Security looked at me with raised eyebrows. Me. This woman appears to be confused. She thinks this is the Medical Associates Group office, and that she's my boss. She's demanding to be seen immediately and is disrupting our scheduled appointments. Security, ma'am, this is Family First Medical, a private practice. Medical Associates is in Building C, not Building A. Woman, that's not true. I know exactly where my own offices are. Security, ma'am, I've worked security for this plaza for 5 years. I know where every business is located. Would you like me to show you to Medical Associates? Woman, stop lying. This is Medical Associates, and I'm in charge here. Security, ma'am, I need you to lower your voice and either wait your turn or come with me to find the correct office. Woman, I will not. I demand to see a doctor now. Security, that's not how it works. You need to calm down or leave the premises. Woman, I will not leave my own facility. Call the police if you don't believe me. Security, that won't be necessary. Let's step outside and sort this out. She refused to move, crossing her arms like a defiant child. Woman, I'm not going anywhere. This is my office. Security, ma'am, you have 2 options. Wait quietly for your turn or leave the building. If you continue to disrupt this medical practice, I'll have to escort you out. Woman, touch me and I'll sue you and this fake doctor. At this point, security called for backup. Within minutes, another security officer arrived. The woman continued her tirade, now claiming she was going to have everyone fired and sue the entire plaza. Finally, the 2 security guards escorted her out, with her screaming threats the entire way. We could hear her yelling even after the door closed behind them. Everyone in the waiting room sat in stunned silence for a moment before my elderly patient spoke up. Patient, well, that was better than the shows on television. It broke the tension, and everyone laughed. I apologized for the disruption and went back to seeing my scheduled patients. The story doesn't end there, though. About 20 minutes later, my receptionist got a call from the actual Medical Associates Group office. Apparently, the woman had finally found her way to the correct building, where she proceeded to complain about being kidnapped from her office by rogue security guards. The administrator calling us was mortified when they realized what had happened. It turns out the woman was indeed a new regional director for Medical Associates Group who had just transferred from another state. She was supposed to attend her first meeting at their offices, but went to the wrong building. Rather than admit her mistake, she doubled down and created the scene I described. The administrator apologized profusely and assured us they were handling the situation internally. I later heard through the grapevine that the woman was placed on administrative leave pending review. The cherry on top? One of the patients in my waiting room during this fiasco works in human resources for a large company. She recognized the woman as someone who had interviewed at their company recently and had been rejected for being difficult to work with and lacking self-awareness. Some people just can't admit when they're wrong, I guess. But at least it gave everyone in our office a story to tell for years to come. Story 4. My brother worked in Chicago 5 days a week, and then would drive 6 hours to spend the weekend with his wife. They were newly married, and his promotion to Chicago was unexpected. since he was still paying for his house. His job provided hotels, gas, and food for free for up to 18 months while he figured out his housing situation. During this time, his wife stayed at their house. She took advantage of this opportunity to be unfaithful and spent as much of his money as she could. She even left him with so little in his account that he could not afford to buy a pack of cigarettes while he was in Mexico for work. And this was the day after he had been paid. Long story short, their relationship collapsed. She moved in with her boyfriend, and I was helping my brother pack up her belongings so she could come and pick them up. As I was packing, I carefully wrapped her sentimental keepsakes in packing paper and labeled the box with an unkind word. My brother asked me to remove it, so as a small act of revenge to vent my frustration, I went into the bathroom, grabbed her extra-strength feminine care product, lovingly wrapped it in packing paper, and placed it with her memorabilia sweetly sandwiched between two seashell owl figurines that had belonged to her grandmother. If that was not enough, when she arrived to collect her belongings, she became furious that we had locked her out of the house and attempted to kick in a panel window beside the front door. My brother rushed to stop her, and I started filming with my phone as evidence in case she escalated further. I calmly stated that I was recording, and she turned on me, called me an offensive name, and smacked my phone out of my hand. Well, that was against the law. I was planning to press charges, but my brother instead used the video as leverage to ensure she did not cause any further trouble. Eventually, her parents came to pick up the rest of her belongings, and she left us alone. It was not nearly enough to make up for what she did, and it still is not, but at least it was something. It may have been petty, but it brought a little satisfaction.